Yo, what's going on, everybody? Hope everybody out there doing well. Another best practices Wednesday night session about to go down. So we are going to start off in a couple minutes. Usually we start off when we get to like between 10 and 15 people, and then we'll go ahead and kick it off. So we'll wait a couple seconds, about a minute or two, and then we'll get to rocking and rolling out there. We hope everybody, like I said, is doing well. Staying safe out there. Yo, what's going on, Rick? Good to see you, brother. And what's going on, Javon? Good to see you, brother, as well. So yeah, we about to get busy in a little bit, in a couple seconds. So hope everybody out there, like I said, doing good. Everybody's family's doing good and staying safe during this craziness. Hopefully things are going back to normal. What's going on, Lise? Good to see you, champ. So tonight we are going to talk about a subject that is very much misconstrued is body types. We want to dispel some myths. We're really going to get down in there and really get and see exactly if we can break this down on a level. We got 10 folks. We're ready to rock. So does anybody out there, yo, what's going on, Big T? Mr. Nostalgia himself, the illest. Appreciate you chiming in, my man. I really do appreciate it. As always, salute to you and your business. And as always, anything that I can do to support. You really have an amazing product. So drop that inside of here too. You know, let everybody know where to get that soap from, bruh. Let everybody know where to get that from. So drop that. So let's get busy. So first off, does anybody have trouble losing body fat? Like, we're going to start off like an infomercial. Like, does anybody got trouble losing body fat? You know, you diet all week. What's going on, Melissa? You diet all week long. Everybody is doing good. Your diet is on point. Then you got one small slip up over the weekend, and then, you know, the scale jumps back up. Or does it, some people are on the opposite end of the spectrum where they feel like they can eat for days and don't gain an ounce. I have athletes and clients like that as well. And it could have something to do, you know, with your body type, right? So we're going to break that down today. But is it really that simple? And let's talk about it. But before we talk about that, we're going to dispel a huge myth that's out there. And I think this is especially true for the South. And we were going to put it out there right now. Has anyone out there heard of the term or heard anyone say, I'm not really that overweight, I'm just big boned? Yo, has anybody heard that down south especially? Hey, I'm not really overweight, I'm big bone. Now, we say that back in Georgia. You know, oh, he's big bone. Well, there is such a thing as being big bone, but it's not a medical term, and it's never, ever used correctly. Ever used correctly. What big bone means and what people mean by big bone is never the same thing, ever. People with larger bones are slightly larger for their heights. Yes, that is correct. But it's the soft tissue, right, atop the bones, around the bones, you know, your muscle and your fat, that make some people look more big boned than others. For example, right, an obese person can weigh more than 350 pounds, right? We'll say that for example. And they have big legs, but actually have very small bones. They can have very small bones. The bones that make up the human skeleton comprise of about 15% of your body weight. So the bones that make up your entire skeleton from the crown of your head to the bottom of your feet only make up about 15% of your body weight. Thus, a non-obese 200-pound adult, you know, which is me, I'm about 205, 210, has a bone weight of about 30 pounds. And half of that weight is water. So both in the bones themselves as well as the marrow they contain, there's water in there. As we know, water weighs a lot, folks. So the dry, fat-free skeleton, such as like they do in an autopsy, comprises approximately of 6 to 7% of an adult's body mass. So the big thing, and yes, Kitty, you're exactly right. The fat that goes around as well as the muscle of the bone. You're exactly right. So therefore, like I said, the bones of that same 200-pound person, which is me, an adult person, at an autopsy weighs only 12 pounds. So now that we've dispelled the myth about being big bone and those types and those things that we hear all the time down south, as a personal trainer and as a nutritionist, I know how complex body types can actually be. So tonight we're going to explore, more in depth and kind of analyze how they relate to an overall body composition. So what is a body type? So a body type, or a somatotype, which refers to the idea that there are three generalized body compositions that apply to everyone, that are predetermined, and they're predetermined to have. Now, the concept, when I did some digging into this, was theorized by a guy by the name of Dr. W.H. Sheldon. And this actually goes back to the early 1940s, naming the three types of somatotypes, which are endomorph, mesomorph, and ectomorph. So those are the three types he said. It was originally believed that this person's somatotype was unchangeable. Like you could do nothing with it. You were born with it. You were stuck. There's nothing you could do about it. And that certain physiological and psychological characteristics were even determined by whichever one the person aligned to. So, according to Dr. Sheldon, endomorphs have bodies that are always round and soft. Okay? Mesomorphs are always square and muscular. Ectomorphs are always thin and fine boned. That was what he theorized to make the three categories of what we're talking about tonight. So he theorized that these body types directly influence a person's personality, and the names were chosen because he believed that predominant traits of the somatotypes were set in stone. You couldn't change them. If you were endomorph, you were endomorph. If you were ectomorph, you were ectomorph. And if you were mesomorph, you were mesomorph. There's no changes. There's nothing you can do. You're stuck with it. It's in your genes. It's in heredity. You're stuck. So what we found out about the endomorphs, and kind of breaking it down to a more specific level, is the endomorph is, relative to having a soft roundness throughout various regions of the body. The digestive viscera, or your abs and, your stomach, are more massive and relatively, they dominate your body economy, right? And you have a more relaxed, comfortable, and extroverted personality. This is all by what Dr. Sheldon had said in the early 1940s. A mesomorph, he came out to say, was a relative predominance in muscle, bones. You're more athletic, you're heavy, you're hard, your rectangular outline. All those things are moving there. You're more active, you're more dynamic, you're more assertive. So those are his personality traits for the mesomorph that Dr. Sheldon came out with as well. So the last one that he came out in the generalization was an ectomorph, which was a relatively predominant, and you were more fragile, you were more introverted, thoughtful, and inhibited. So went back to all the psychologists reading this, they blew all that out the water. That's been debunked. But what we're left with are the physiological traits of those three traits that he left us with those three specific categories. So the body, however, the understanding of his original concept is what we're going to talk about tonight, specifically just the physical structure of an endomorph, an ectomorph, and a mesomorph. So just remember that the one thing that I want you is your body type is not a life sentence. So let's go ahead and be very specific there. There's understood and accepted today that your body types reflect a more generalized picture of three types and how a person's physiological is functioning in their current state. So let's get down to business. So when I'm looking at everything and realizing that it's not a life sentence, the fitness industry at its core is all about helping people utilize things that are kind of out of their control, improving their lifestyle, improving their diet, to overcome those challenges, by genetic and environmental factors, But let's look at how to improve your body composition by looking at those three specific types. So research continues, and I looked this up on several different journals. Research continues to provide that physical training and consistent habitual changes to your diet have a strong influence on one's body composition. So metabolic conditions such as hyper and hypothyroidism are fully within the realm of modern medicine to manage and improve, right? And chronic conditions like type 2 diabetes are manageable and can even be remedied in a lot of different cases by improvements to your diet, and we know, of course, to your exercise. But, simply put, your exercise and your diet have a direct impact on your body type. So, like I said, you're not stuck with this life sentence of you being an endomorph all your life or you being your ectomorph all your life, and how everybody wants to be a specific mesomorph because you're more athletic, you have a more athletic prowess, your reaction time's better. All those things are proven when you're a mesomorph. But are you saying that when you're endomorph or when you're ectomorph, you're stuck? Absolutely not. And we will prove that tonight. Because the human body is highly adaptable and it always seeks homeostasis. And that just simply means equilibrium within its environment. So when we take a break from our old patterns, that body has gotten used to that, right? So if I have not worked out in 10 years, my body is going to then react to me not working out for 10 years. The fact that I can take change and time and consistency is why people don't change, right? Change is hard. Change is rough. Change sucks. Your body is going to fight you tooth and nail because let's go back to that word, homeostasis. Your body is simply trying to be at equilibrium at all times. So if you start working out again after that 10-year span, your body is not going to love you for it because it wants to be comfortable, right? And then, but you're going to have to get uncomfortable to make that change. And that's what happens to a lot of people who go on and off of diets, go on and off of exercise, is that their body after that first month or two, really hurts, and they give it a good 30 days. And then those changes started to happen. Or at those 3-month mark, the changes slow down. Remember, you've been eating and exercising or lack thereof for 10, 12 years. You're not going to see those same results in rapid time. So you got to be very, very careful there. So because change is hard and it's often easier and convenient to just chalk up, hey, I'm bigboned, or hey, I'm a mesomorph, hey, I'm an ectomorph, and you just leave that up to your body's control. That's not what we're going to do and talk about tonight. Muscle is healthily gained, listen here, at about 1 pound per month. Naturally. So, you're only about 1 pound a month when you're doing that lifestyle modification. So, also, too, the physical training, and then you're taking off a healthy weight to lose per week is about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds. So when I'm hearing all of these specific diets, when I'm hearing all of these, hey, in 30 days, lose 30 pounds, no, that's not how it ever works. Those are fad diets. Those are things that are not natural. Those are things that can harm your body. So do not jump on the fad diet train where you cut carbs, where you can't even think and drive because you're on 9 carbs a day. It's ridiculous, right? It just doesn't make any sense at all because that's not naturally for your body to handle, to be carb less, just not natural. So you want to lose about 1 pound to 1.5 pounds, up to 2 a week. And then you also want to lose, or if you want to gain weight, you need to be gaining healthy muscle about 1 pound a month naturally. So now that we've got that out the way, so as a desirable body composition has to be obtained, it has to be obtained through lifestyle modification, right? Physical training and healthy changes to your diet. But more importantly, when those new habits are adopted, they have to be maintained permanently. That's the biggest takeaway from tonight. So the new body type that is somatic for all those changes will eventually become the new normal. So if you are an endomorph and then, you find yourself holding more fat, if you find yourself, gaining weight very quickly, gaining body fat very quickly, when you change your diet and change your lifestyle to find a balance of a new normal, and you do that over years, your body will actually change into that mesomorph as you get leaner, as you become more of an athlete, and as you become more defined. So metabolisms and appetites adjust to your new energy levels. Really that simple. So physical activity becomes a natural part of the day instead of a chore. And someone who is predominantly ectomorphic or endomorphic will eventually see themselves displaying far more mesomorphic or athletic traits over time. Guaranteed. So everybody who's trying to ascribe to be a mesomorph, to be an athlete, wide shoulders, lean waist, muscle dexterity, all of those things, you can get there over time, even if you are, let's say, overweight, or you're just always been skinny. You can get there over time, but it takes time, it takes modification to the diet, and it takes training. So do not let your current body state, if you're a mesomorphic or ectomorphic, ectomorphic or endomorphic, get in the way of you trying to be a mesomorphic person. Doesn't make any sense at all. So in light of all of this, and now we've kind of broken it down to a understanding of your current state, and this is what I do with my athletes, and this is what I do with my clients. I make an observation that can quickly kind of identify their physiological situation, whether they be ectomorphic, endomorphic, or mesomorphic, and then I kind of tailor my solution or their goals, and that will preferentially address each one of them, because I kind of I do tailor everything to them, and I use their somatic type, their body type, to align to their personal goals and what they need. So I know, for example, Endomorphix, let's jump on them and we'll talk about them for about 5 minutes. Those are stockier bone structures. They have larger midsection. They have larger hips. They carry more fat throughout the body. They gain fat fast and lose it slow. So naturally slow metabolism, and those can be potentially due to chronic conditions as well, like thyroid deficiency, diabetes, and but too frequently, there as a result of a sedentary lifestyle and chronically, positive daily energy balance. So there's an issue there. With our mesomorphic people, those are medium bone structure, wider, than the hips. They develop kind of an athletic musculature. What's going on? Tony said he was an endomorph in the house. Efficient metabolism, mass gain, loss, both happen with relative ease. Ectomorphic are more narrow shoulders, hips in respect to their height. They're relatively small muscles in respect to bone length. They have a naturally fast metabolism and makes it very difficult. And I have coached in competitions true ectomorphs, 2 of them, 3 of them that I've just come to off the top of my head. That it is like pulling teeth to try to get them to gain weight. We have to be very strategic in their diet. We have to be very strategic in their cardio input, and we'll get through all that later. And, once I identify what somatotype, a client most aligns to, I consider their structural, and I look at their metabolic challenges that, are associated with it. So then I tailor their exercise program and, how I put together their nutritional diet to overcome those specific hurdles, right? So they preferentially develop the necessary foundation that each client individually requires. So that's my job. That's what I do. So typically for like a new client, just trying to get in shape, we're just going to go ahead and look at their body structure, how they are. And obviously, they're going to be exceptions to every rule. So we got to be careful because we don't want to blanket everybody. But usually, those, endomorphic, mesomorphic, or ectomorphic principles, I can, look at you, kind of see your structure, kind of see where you're at the moment, and then make a decision on how to put together an exercise plan and how to put together a meal plan for you that will benefit your specific body structure, because you are unique. But some people fall with some endomorphic tendencies, and then they have some mesomorphic tendencies. I can see the athletic build in them, but they also have a mesomorphic tendency about them that you got to be very, very careful to make sure that you are getting a balance on both sides. Because just because you're all endomorphic doesn't mean you can't carry mesomorphic tendencies. So you can have an athletic build. You can be, a decent athlete, but you're still an endomorph. So when you're going back to a mesomorph, the leaner you get, and the leaner and the tighter and the more body fat you use, and you move into the mesomorphic realm, if you maintain that, you eventually over time become a mesomorph. So that's what happens over time. So quickly in just training, endomorphs, I predominantly kind of look at fat loss. We talk about desirable body composition. We use a lot of resistance training, strength training to stabilize those joints. I kind of, very hard on them on their cardiorespiratory because they need it. Consistent anaerobic, for my endomorphs as well. And just make sure that, commitment to a less sedentary lifestyle overall if you're just a client, looking to get in better shape. And to accomplish this, you want to make sure your calories are in the right place. And that's, a whole nother segment on calorie and calorie utilization. But yeah, calories need to be on point. And there's a whole bunch of different things that you can do to, maximize your calorie burn and improve your metabolic efficiency. So when I'm looking at ectomorphs or people who can't gain weight, there's due to a number of factors, whether they just be highly active metabolisms, they're lanky. And the reason for the exercise techniques, they need to be in hypertrophy and they need to utilize maximal strength. And that should kind of be prioritized when you're training them. So hypertrophy and maximal strength resistance is what's going to work to build muscle. And they also need to be taking in protein and a pretty good amount of protein when you're ectomorph, simply because you need to continue that protein synthesis. So that means even I have had some ectomorphs have to wake up at night to get a meal in just because they can't wait that long to get a meal. Because they're really going to go and put themselves in a calorie deficit, so they can't wait 8 hours. So they have to kind of get up in the middle of the night if they're really committed to the process and needed to gain weight to continue to utilize that protein synthesis that we have going on. So now putting this kind of all together when training mesomorphs, it is a bit easier when you're already athletically, inclined and now athletically built, but you still got to work hard. You got to still be functional. Even if you're not an athlete, your muscle mass is what we're, looking at, and you have more as a foundational framework, but you still got to work. And please remember, while there's an undoubtedly, some people who, look lean and fit, they may not necessarily, they may be more of an exception to the rule, especially when they're not, training specifically if they were a mesomorph. So, for our endomorphs and our ectomorphs, individuals, who improve their lifestyles, diets, and fitness, who work hard, you can all become a mesomorph technically. Of course, Tony, thank you for that as well. Always try to provide good info. And you have to look at sport-specific training. So comparatively, diets for mesomorph bodies should be tailored specifically, to your health and your fitness goals. That's going to be super, super important, to make sure that you're getting in the right amount of protein, and, the right amount of carbs, and all of those things in the macronutrient level have to be understood. So, for example, if you are going to a nutritionist or if you're going to a trainer who's doing your diet, hopefully, they understand the importance of these three structures and these three body types, because if they don't, they're really not going to be able to make a fair assessment and then utilize your strengths as well as your weaknesses to craft your diet as well as to craft your workout. So if you're working with a trainer, and I'm going to put the trainers on the spot, because if they're certified, they should understand this, that you ask them, hey, what do you think my body type is? And then if they're not telling you, hey, I believe you're endomorphic because of this, I believe you're mesomorphic because of this, fire your trainer. Serious face. So, I'm not trying to put any trainers on the spot, but these are the basic things that when I got my training certification back in 1999, when I was in college, and we went and got our certification, those things haven't changed. So your trainer needs to understand, or your coach needs to understand your specific body type, whether you fall in one of those three categories, and then that way they can cultivate and they can develop, a tailored training and a tailored diet plan for your body. So just to go over, a few things, we'll wrap up in the last 5 minutes here. Want to be respectful of our 30-minute time frame. So one of the myths that we dispelled tonight is that there is no such thing as being big boned. So the next time that you are, hearing that, the next time you want to use that excuse, don't do it, because you are not big bone. In fact, your bones only make up about 5 or 6% from your body. So think about it. If you're saying that you're big bone and your bones only make up 5 to 6%, that same 200-pound guy, basically his bone structure only weighs about 30 pounds. And of that 30 pounds, half of that is water. So technically, that 200-pound guy, and I'm like I said about that guy, about 210 pounds, then that means that my, skeleton, fat-free skeleton, like what they use at an autopsy, comprises of only about 6 to 7% of your adult's body mass. So big bone does not exist. The term itself, sure that you can be a big bone, but we medically they don't even use the term medically when they say big bone. And it's really just talking about the soft tissue that's torn on top of around the bones, the muscle and the fat. And, that's why, you can sit here and say some people look more big boned than others. But, the constitution of your bones, everybody's bone structure is the same. And it's not that much difference between people, maybe a varying degree of about 2%. So we got that out the way. We won't use that anymore. Don't use big bones because it's not applicable, to when you're talking about that. We also talked about our 3 different body types that Dr. Sheldon founded in the 1940s. We threw out the psychological principles of them being tied to it, and we're looking at the physiological principles where we're talking about 3 different things, right? We're talking about endomorphic, we're talking about mesomorphic, and we're talking about endomorphic. So those 3 things are the 3 categories that you fall in. So understanding what you fall in is very, very important to cultivating your diet. It's very, very important to cultivating, your workout plan. And, if you're endomorphic, you're looking at, trying to be you're probably a little bit heavier. You have a little bit more visceral fat. You gain fat kind of quickly. And you have to, have a, calorie reduction in your diet. You have to use your anaerobic and your aerobic. Now, if you're ectomorphic, you're slender, you're more lean, you don't have to utilize cardio as much because you don't gain fat as quickly. And that's what that means. And when you're mesomorphic, you're simply, more of an athlete. So everybody's to try to ascribe from the endomorphic and the ectomorphic range to move into that mesomorphic range. And it can happen. Your body structure that you have now is not a jail sentence. Absolutely. And so the biggest important thing for me in explaining that as a coach and as a nutritionist, I just want you guys to understand that just because you are endomorphic does not mean you have to stay endomorphic. And just because you are ectomorphic, you're skinny, you don't really have a lot of muscle, then at the end of the day, you're going to have to work harder. You're going to have to utilize more protein to establish protein synthesis in your body. You're going to have to utilize more calories. You're going to have to come back on your cardio. Those are the things and the macronutrient, that you have to play with along with your calorie output. All of those things have to go in there. But the biggest thing is consistency and effort. And that's what I preach with my company is consistency and effort. You cannot do this for 2 months and be satisfied and think now that I got a half a ab, now that I can go ahead and I'm mesomorphic. No, if you have endomorphic tendencies and you regress, you're going to go back to your endomorphic tendencies because your body is always going to try to go back to equilibrium. Your body is going to try to go back to homeostasis. And what happens then is that point is that you can go 2 weeks strong and then all of a sudden you have a bad weekend and then you're jumping back. So the end of the day is it's going to be very, very important that you utilize every single thing that you have in terms of in your toolbox. So as the endomorphic piece and as ectomorphic and as a mesomorphic, it is very, very important that you understand these varying degrees. Also, to make sure you're speaking with your trainers. Leave your questions here that you have, and I will make sure that I get back to you about some simple things that I can answer. And the most important thing is remember that it's not a death sentence. It is not at the end of the day your ability to be an endomorph or ectomorph all your life. You can change and we can all be mesomorph. We can all be athletes. But we have to get there, which at the end of the day, it's consistency and effort. I believe everyone can do it. And I believe that you can eventually get there over time, but it's not easy. Change is never easy. And it's always going to be something that you're going to have to work for and you're going to have to strive for. Even though endomorphs that I know now have mesomorphic tendencies and properties, they still have to work just as hard so they don't switch back into being a endomorph, which can happen very quickly. So you want to just be always mindful of that. Once again, thank you so much for tuning in to Best Practices. Please keep your questions coming. Please hit me up in the messages here and in the DM. And also make sure that you are doing your best to dispel bad information. And that's what we do here. That's why we have an open forum. That's why we talk about it. And once again, salute, Team Best Fit family. Thank you so much for all your support and love. Love coaching each and every one of you, all my athletes and all my clients out there. And if you have any questions, please leave them here. And let's keep this party going because we got to get healthy together. Let's get it. Peace.